All right. Welcome everyone to our first talk for the Lyceum-Agora. I am Tridip, one half of the co-host for this session and for the channel in particular. And my colleague here will introduce her in a few seconds. So I did my bachelor's and master's from Hindu College, University of Delhi in philosophy. Now, most of the audience, I hope, has seen our first video, which is about what this whole channel is going to be about. It's going to have lectures and sessions and so much more. And we are very proud to host our first session where we will, this is not a very formal setting. We will basically talk about what consciousness is, and it's an essential interaction, basically. So now I would like to request my colleague, Dorothy, to give a brief introduction about herself.
Hi everyone. So I also did my master's in philosophy in the University of Mumbai. Right now, I am a philosophy researcher exploring AI and consciousness. So my work investigates how intelligent systems challenge and reshape traditional understandings of mind, identity, embodiment, and meaning. So I mostly focus on questions at the intersection of AI and philosophy of mind, including whether machines can think or can be conscious. So
Mm.
that's why I'm here. We are here, very interested in this talk on consciousness. It's going to be more like an interactive session, but yes, I am looking forward to this.
Yes, of course. We have so many ideas and objectives for this channel. This is basically our first brief introduction. So in the
Yes, yes.
future, we do have hopes to have professors and other research scholars on our channel and on our platform. So it's very interesting you said that you're interested in philosophy of mind, because that is also an interest of mine, phenomenology in particular. I
Right, right.
I would say yes. I would say that that is something I've always had an interest in. My master's dissertation, however, was on metaphysics. Now, I feel I don't know if there has been work on this, but metaphysics and
Mm-hmm.
phenomenology are, I think, very interconnected. I think one thing leads to the other. Because in metaphysics, what you do is you essentially talk about what your reality is, what is the foundation of all,
Right, right.
right? And what is phenomenology? It's
Mhm.
essentially the study of your subjective experience. Now, no, don't you think,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
when you're studying your subjective experience, you're also studying about what underlies reality, right? So,
Right, right.
yeah, and when you talk about AI is also something that I have essentially. It didn't used to be an interest of mine, but it has become an interest of mine in the recent times, because I think there is some research to be done, or there is a possibility of more research to be done on the phenomenology of AI. Have we thought about how AI thinks? Just try putting yourself in the AI shoes, for instance. So, how do you
Right.
study it from their perspective? Because we all look at AI from our perspective, right? How we look at it. But how does AI think? What if AI
But
was, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That,
what if,
but that's the question, right? Can
exactly.
A can AI think?
Hmm.
That's the first question I think we should tackle it, right?
Yes, of
Because we
course.
just assume that it is thinking, but like what does it mean to think
Mm-hmm.
is also
Exactly.
something that,
Yeah.
and on top of that, what does it mean to be conscious? What does it mean for a being to think? All these
Exactly.
are questions that we can tackle.
Yes, a phenomenology of AI in general. So, AI is very
Right,
interesting because today's, well, topic or interaction is basically about what is consciousness, right? And its philosophical exploration.
right, right.
Maybe I'll just start with what consciousness is. I know you want to talk about this very interesting theory. So let us talk about what
Yes.
consciousness is, right? I have some of notes on my phone here. I'm just going to talk about it. You can stop me at any time
Okay.
just to
All
have,
right.
yeah, have a discussion on it, right? So,
Right, right. Go
okay,
ahead,
so
please.
yeah, consciousness, of course, we know is one of the most enigmatic phenomena, right? Phenomena in philosophy, neuroscience, and even psychology. And now, what consciousness is, maybe to some people who do not really know of it, it's essentially the
Mm-hmm.
study of your subjective experience of being aware, your awareness of how you see the world. And I would say that is phenomenology in itself. The internal
Right,
first
right.
person, yeah, the internal first person perspective, for instance. through the perspective through which we perceive, feel, think, and reflect. So while everyday experience gives the impression of effortless awareness, understanding consciousness has proven to be one of the most challenging problems for philosophy and even cognitive science because we don't know what consciousness truly is. What is it?
Exactly.
It's something that we name, but we have never been able to determine. And its history goes back far back into the past, even from Descartes when he said, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But then what exactly is thinking? What exactly is it, right? So I,
Right.
yeah, in my studies, I've also found that philosophers often distinguish between two types of consciousness. I don't know if you're aware of it. You probably are. Phenomenal consciousness and access consciousness. Now, what phenomenal consciousness is, it's essentially what it is like consciousness. If you have read Thomas Nagel's What Is It Like to Be a Bat? So
Yes.
phenomenal consciousness is what you feel like the world is, your inner subjective experience, how you experience the world around you. In front of me is my laptop. In front of me is my bed, my wardrobe, for instance. So how I feel it, how I see it, how I experience it, that is phenomenal consciousness. Now, the
Right.
other
Right.
type of consciousness is access consciousness. It involves the functional aspect of mental states, the way information is available for our reasoning, for our behavior, for our speech, for example. So this distinction, I think, underlines the central difficulty in defining consciousness itself, because it is simultaneously both experiential and functional. So it's very dynamic. You see consciousness, or you think about consciousness. It's what you experience, right? But it's also about what
Right.
is
Right.
available to you in terms of behavior, in terms of speech, and yeah, in terms of reasoning. So it's both functional and experiential, and that's why probably they have not been able to define what is consciousness to this very day, because it's very mysterious, almost. It's very mystical. Now,
It is.
yeah. So obviously, there's this mind-body problem that all philosophers or philosophy students are aware of.
Right.
How subjective experience emerges from physical processes, the physicalist approach, as they call it, right? So these are dualist theories, what Descartes posited, that the mind is separate from the body, that there's this dualism
Right.
going on there. Obviously, there are so many critiques against it, which we will look at. But um, but here's the thing. I know that you want to talk about the integrated information theory, and there's also this
Right.
one thing. Yeah, there's also this one thing called global workspace theory that attempts to bridge these perspectives. The question is that how does your mind, something which is so mental and abstract, can interact with your physical processes? Now, if I think about pain, why does it hurt?
Mm.
Now, why does it hurt? Right? You
Right.
can't
Right.
you can't really explain it. Why does your physical processes and your mental processes are so interconnected? Now that is the hard problem of consciousness, as they talk about David Chalmers, for example. Now we can go on and on about so many other theories, but I would like to know about your integrated information theory, and to know about what you think consciousness is like. If you
Right.
would like
Right.
to go ahead, yeah.
But before we go ahead, like what you said about consciousness being a mystery, that is,
Yeah.
it is indeed a mystery. And to me, I feel like anyone who can define what consciousness is doesn't know what consciousness is at all.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we can't define what consciousness is, right? I
Mm,
really like the quote by Susan Blackmore. She said that
mm,
consciousness is an illusion. So it is an illusion. And
mm.
even Anil said, he said that consciousness is a controlled hallucination. So it's kind of similar to that. So that's why I said that anyone who can define what consciousness is doesn't know what consciousness
Doesn't know
is at
what.
all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is a mystery. But although we have different explanation to what consciousness is,
Right.
we cannot come to a definite certain term to it. So
Hmm.
this is why, like you said, this is why I am also interested in phenomenology as well.
Hmm.
And I have this one quote that I wanted to use. This is
Yeah.
what I come up with. To think about consciousness is the beginning of conscious awareness of consciousness. And
Ah, yes.
I say this because the act of thinking about it already is an act of self-awareness,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
So if we go into the phenomenology, it teaches us that consciousness is conscious of something, and that
Hmm.
consciousness is consciousness of something again. That
Yeah.
intentionality is built into the very structure of experience, right? So, but then I feel like what we are conscious of and how we relate to it
Hmm.
is profoundly shaped by our cultural and historical context. Do you think? Because let's say, take for the example, in our town, the dominant cosmology in our town is theological, right? So it is
Hmm.
shaped by Christian missionary influence. So
Can I
consciousness
can
is
I say
often
something?
equated to soul. Yes,
Right.
yes, please.
So, when you talk about your town, I think it would also be nice if you could talk about where you are from, because I think the audience may not know where you're from and the
Or
context behind it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes, I am from Lamka, Manipur, which is the
Hmm.
northeast side of India. But
Yes.
you are also from northeast, right? You are from
Yeah,
Assam as
I'm from
well. But as
Assam,
I live
but yeah, but the culture may differ, because once again, people think of Northeast as one single block, but it is not, right? So
exactly,
when you talk about Manipur and the place you grew up with, could you talk about its historical and religious background so that we can arrive at what the point you're trying to make?
right. So in
Mm.
our town, like I said, the in Lamka, Manipur, it is Christian dominant, right?
Right. Okay.
And it's different from the Imphal from Manipur. So we
Hmm.
don't consider ourselves Manipuri most of the time because
Okay.
when we talk about Manipuri, we often think that it's the Meitei, but then we
Hmm.
are the tribals, and then it's influenced by Christian missionaries and everything. So
Hmm.
we think that consciousness is also equated to soul, right? So if
Yeah.
you are conscious, that means that you have a soul, and a soul, which is a gift from God, that
Okay.
Marcus says distinct from animals and
Hmm.
certainly distinct from machines, right?
Hmm.
So in
Okay.
your
Yeah.
town or where you are from, you
Yeah.
guys do not often equated the consciousness to the soul, or is it totally different?
For where I'm from, I think it's both. When I say both, I mean it's also influenced by animistic tribal culture, but also
Oh, wow.
Vaishnavi Hinduism. So it's like an integration of both. I think if we go down to the basics, Assam itself has three main cultures that influenced it. The Ahom dynasty that came brought about their own Tai Shan heritage. Then there's this
Right,
Indo-Aryan Sanskrit tradition that came, but also from the tribal highland clans like ours, which had their own animistic beliefs. So we do believe in a soul through
right,
the Vaishnavi tradition, but also because animistic religion like Donipolo, I don't think it literally believes in a soul. I may be wrong, but
right,
I think we mostly believe that once we're dead, because we bury our dead, right? So we bury
right.
them in coffins, even though we're not Christians, we do that. And then I think,
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
I think we believe that our body goes back to nature after we die. I don't think there's anything beyond it. But that's a syncretized belief. Uh, the soul being from Hinduism, from animistic beliefs going back to nature. So yeah, very interesting like that.
Right. So
Hmm.
see, this is why I say that it is profoundly shaped by culture and historical
Right,
context that
right.
we come from. So
Hmm.
this also makes me think that this sun is so annoying. It's disturbing me. But then, is it
That's fine.
fine? Can you see me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay, yes, very. So I was saying yes. So that we can kind of conclude that the very thing that makes us conscious also
Hmm.
limits our consciousness. I mean, the
Hmm.
source of consciousness is also the source of its limits, right? And if we say this in terms of Wittgenstein, he will say
Yeah.
that the very form of life that gives us consciousness
Mm-hmm.
also limits consciousness itself.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I find that expanding our own consciousness is very important. Because to truly understand consciousness, we must
Mm-hmm.
understand not only how it appears to us, but
Yeah.
also how the world allows or denies its expression. And by expanding consciousness, I do not mean that we have to reach something beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Expanding consciousness is more about removing the limits we have placed on ourselves.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
That's
So when
right.
you, yeah, so what Wittgenstein was doing is also, it's linguistic phenomenology, I think, no? Because
Yes, it
what he
is.
said, our language is the limits of our world. Now,
Yes,
how can you talk about something? I think I've related this with Thomas Nagel's What It Is Like to Be a Bat. I wrote this one essay.
yes,
I know you have written it too for Berggruen Institute. There,
right, right.
yeah, Thomas Nagel talked about how we can never know what a bat feels like because we do not know its world, right? So
Yes,
our language, what we use, that determines what we can know. When we talk about what consciousness is, we think consciousness is X, Y, Z. But that's because we are only
exactly. Once
aware of
again.
X. Yeah. So it's only because we are aware of what XYZ is. Maybe it's ABC that we never know. So, and then
Right.
we are not in a position to determine what is conscious or what is not conscious, according to me, because we do not know what consciousness is. So it's like we're shooting arrows in the dark, hoping that something sticks. That is my opinion regarding that. Please go ahead.
Yes,
Okay, sorry, we ran into some technical errors, but please continue with your integrated information theory that you were talking about. But before that, what I was
right.
talking about was that we think consciousness is one thing, but maybe it's the other thing. But then, since we can never conceptualize and imagine what the other thing is, maybe that's why we talk about things as conscious or not conscious. Now, what does it all mean? I will get into it. I have something to say about it later, but you go ahead with your
Right, right.
story first, please.
Okay, so IIT Integrated Information Theory, which
Mm-hmm.
is developed by Dr. Giulio Tonodi and his colleagues.
Okay.
So IIT, or Integrated Information Theory rather, tries
Mm-hmm.
to answer that consciousness is and why certain physical systems, like our brain, for example, are
Mm-hmm.
conscious. So the theory starts from not from the brain, but
Mm-hmm.
from the nature of experience itself, like we talk about phenomenology again. So it is like what it is, it's like to be conscious, and like you said,
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Nagel, what it is like to be a bat.
Yeah.
So his basic move is that integrated information theory, instead of beginning with neurons or computational models, it
Mm-hmm.
begins with phenomenology. So from
Mm-hmm.
the structure of experience, and then infers what physical system must be like to realize such experiences. So in simple terms, it
Mm-hmm.
just means that consciousness is, what it feels like to be a system that has a lot of integrated information, right? So that means
Okay.
when parts of a system, like neurons in our brain, are highly connected and affect each other, the system as a whole, they produce information that cannot be reduced to what its parts do individually.
Hmm.
So that reducible integrated information is our experience, the what it is like to be that system. For example, think of a pen. One second. Think of a pen. So
Yeah.
can you see this?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Yes. So it just doesn't make sense to call this a pen, right? I'm not sure if it's that visible,
It is visible to
but
us.
yes. See, it doesn't make sense at all. But then when
Mm-hmm.
I put all of this together, when
Yeah.
it becomes whole, then it becomes meaningful as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree? So the system as a whole produce information. So it when it becomes something whole and meaningful, that wholeness is like consciousness. So basically, integrated information theory is that it just basically says that consciousness isn't magic at all. It's
Mm.
just what happens when information in the system becomes so deeply connected that the whole cannot be broken into parts without losing what it is. And that wholeness is
Mm-hmm.
consciousness.
I
That's
see.
what basically is. But then before I go further into this, I feel like this integrated information theory is very radical. And I
Mm.
say this because integrated information theory implies that consciousness is fundamental. It is an intrinsic property of physical systems.
Mm-hmm.
And this means that even some non biological systems, if they have the right structure, we could, in principle, at least in principle, have
Mm-hmm.
some degree of consciousness even in non biological systems, which means if a machine have the right structure, it could in principle be conscious.
Okay,
But then can AI ever be conscious? That's the problem.
that's very interesting. I do you think you must have heard about Searle's Chinese room experiment, for example. That is
Right, right, yes.
that he says that AI, or not AI, I would say machines, but I guess AI can be generalized into this. That
Mm,
just
yes,
that
definitely.
just because a machine can, I don't know, maybe speak Chinese or write in Chinese doesn't mean that it actually understands Chinese, right? So then
Right.
we also get into this whole question of sentience versus sapience. Now, do you know what those things are?
Yes, yes. Continue,
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. So sentience is essentially having an inner subjective world. We are sentient creatures because we can
Yes.
experience the world around us. Now, but what is sapience then? Sapience is the ability to conduct higher order thinking skills like abstraction or distinction or compounding. Because we are able to, now if I ask you to think about a golden mountain or a pink elephant, you can possibly think of it. Yes, you can
Yes, I can
probably.
just picture it or
You
imagine
can
it,
picture it.
probably.
You can picture it because you are also sapient. Now, I'm
Right.
going to, now, if I ask AI to think about a pink elephant or draw me a pink elephant. Now, you may say there is some degree of difference there, according to me, but it can still give me a picture of a pink elephant or a golden mountain. But so that means that they are to some degree sapient. Yes. But then
Right.
again, the problem arises that can we call AI sentient? Does it feel like we do? Does it feel pain? Now, if you go through, you lose a loved one, you feel pain. You feel pain even years from now, you still think about them. Does ChatGPT, Perplexity, or any of these AI LLMs, can they feel the same? That is the difference. Now, if they can feel like that 10 years from now because they lost, I don't know, a brother LLM, then we can call them sentient. And until they can do so, we do not know if they're sentient or not, but we know they're sapient. But here's the other interesting aspect. Dogs, for example, I
Right.
would say dogs are sentient to some extent, maybe not like human beings in the same way that we feel. We we can feel love, right? And we go
Yes.
into this whole other discussion of what exactly love is, but then we feel love, we feel emotions, sorrows, we feel hatred towards somebody. Some animals can feel hatred towards somebody for sure. Like crows, I have heard they have a long memory and they actually hate people that have done wrong to them. Dogs, on the other hand,
Oh,
yeah. So dogs, on the other hand, they probably do feel love and companionship to us. But will they feel the same amount of sorrow for the death of a loved one? That is still up for debate. Yeah. So I don't think we
right, right.
so I don't think we can say dogs are as sentient as human beings. However, we can for sure say that dogs are not sapient at all, not like us anyways. They cannot do mental calculations, they cannot think in abstract terms. Now, I'm not sure to what extent research has been done on this, but bees, for example, I have heard bees have this if I'm right, bees have a sort of instrument to find
Mm-hmm.
food. If they find food or something somewhere like a flower, they have a mental map that they share with their other teammates or colleagues or however you want to call them in their
Oh,
hiveness, and then so that they can go back. So they have to some degree some sort of abstraction and mental map making involved. And I think even rats have the same thing. They can find their way back to their holes no matter how far they are because they can think, they can abstract, is what I'm saying. So there's this whole idea of sentience and sapience. Now, AI obviously is sapient, according to me.
mm-hmm.
Sentient is, however, a very controversial thing because how do we even measure it? You tell me. You cannot,
Exactly.
you cannot ask it, do you feel? And even if you ask it, it'll say no. Now, in movies, in media, you see how AI becomes very sentient, doesn't it? In the future, for instance, if you
Exactly.
yeah, if you see Matrix, they start feeling these feelings and they enslave us. Now that means that they've become sentient in the future. But then, presently in this current situation, can we really call ChatGPT sentient? I don't think so. So then,
I don't think so.
yeah, there's also the
Uh,
question. Go on, please.
yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, no, I was simply saying we don't know if it'll even become sentient in the future. It's just simply a fear that we have that AI will become sentient, human-like, and will lead to the wiping out of humanity itself. Regarding this, I also have a few ideas. For instance, uh, there's this idea of a great filter. Have you heard of it?
Great filter?
Hmm. So,
No, I've never not
okay.
heard of it.
So, Enrico Fermi, if I'm remembering his name correctly, he was a
Mm-hmm.
scientist, one of the most prolific scientists from Italy and during the World War II era. I think even he also helped in the creation of this atom bomb, the one that Oppenheimer made
Mm-hmm.
that was dropped onto Japan. So Enrico Fermi had this idea of a great filter. Now, what the hell is a great filter, right? So,
Right.
um, the question that he tried to answer was, if aliens exist, if aliens exist, why haven't we encountered them yet? Why hasn't human beings encountered any sort of alien civilization right now? Why is it
Mm-hmm.
like that? So the idea that he proposed was that maybe there's a civilizational great filter, which means that uh, before humans or any civilization in the galaxy can achieve space travel, before they can even do that, there is something that prevents them from evolving to that level. Now, that could be anything. Maybe it's nuclear war that stops them from
Right.
achieving spacefaring travel. Maybe it's a disease. Maybe it's an epidemic. Now, some people even say maybe it's also AI. Maybe in every civilization, they develop to an extent where they create AI and AI becomes sentient and destroys that civilization. So, no civilization has been able to achieve space travel yet because there is something that prevents them. Now, that prevention is called the Great Filter for every civilization. So, the question is,
Okay.
why haven't we encountered aliens yet? Maybe because all civilizations destroy themselves after a point. This could be AI, nuclear warfare, or anything, some apocalyptic event. So that's the idea of a great filter. Now I have this idea that maybe for AI itself, the great filter is consciousness. Because what if now imagine AI as a civilization, right? Just like humans.
Right.
Now, before they can even become sentient and have plans to dominate humans, I think their own great filter could be that they can never achieve consciousness. It is something that they can never, cross this threshold. So it becomes their own great filter. That is an idea that I was developing in my paper, Machines as Silicon Kagemushes, which is still under review. And once it is published,
Oh,
I may share it on another talk in this channel itself.
yes.
Yeah,
That will be lovely. I feel like this
yeah.
deserve a whole standalone video on this because it's very intriguing.
Oh, thank
And
you.
this is exactly why I said that
Mhm.
consciousness also limits our consciousness.
Right, right, of course.
but yes.
Because here's another thing. When scientists they look for life beyond Earth, right? So they're looking for
Mm-hmm.
life beyond Earth. So they're looking for aliens. Now, one of the foundational assumptions that they have is that they breathe oxygen. They breathe oxygen, they release carbon dioxide, and they have more or less the same physical chemical processes like us. That's the assumption that they make, and then they look for life that is similar to this, right? Now,
Right, right.
what if your base assumption is wrong in itself? What if there are lives or civilizations outside of Earth that have no qualities like this? What if they do not even breathe oxygen? What if they do not even have the same biological, chemical, physical chemical processes the same as us? So your whole base assumption is wrong in the first place. Maybe so it's like saying that I'm looking for I can't think of a proper analogy, but let's say you're looking for four-legged or you arrive to imagine an alien arrives to Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now this alien has four legs. Okay. It walks on
Okay.
four legs. Now they look for any intelligent life form on this planet that resembles them. And only those
Mm-hmm.
life forms they will consider as intelligent life. So then would they come here? They don't even look at us because we don't walk on four legs, right?
Have four legs,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly, right?
So
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 none
they
of us have four legs.
yeah, so they look at animals and they see these animals they cannot perform complex mathematics. So hence we prove that Earth has no intelligent life, right? So and then they
Right.
move away
Interesting.
because their whole base assumption is wrong. Because if you have those assumptions in itself, then how can you expand your sample, your as we call it in research, your sample or your whole hypothesis is wrong in essence. Now, consciousness may be the same as that because we think of consciousness as something that somebody or something that resembles thinking or feeling emotions, right? Now,
Right, right.
what if that is not what consciousness is? I think who was it? I keep forgetting his name. The idea of the philosophical zombie, was it Chalmers himself? Do you remember?
Uh, the zombie analogy.
Yeah, the
He did,
philosophical
isn't it
zombie.
David Chalmers?
I think so. I think it. Yeah, yeah. Of
Yes,
course, I think it
it
was
is
Chalmers
him.
himself.
Yes.
So he posited the idea that um there could be, in essence, hypothetically, a being very similar to us that is
Mm-hmm.
if I'm right, that it displays no consciousness markers the same as us, but it is still conscious, right? Was it that
Right,
or
right.
the other way around? Just a second, I will actually look this up.
I
Um,
yes.
yes, hold on.
Chalmers philosophical zombie is what you're saying, right?
Yes, of course. Now, if you remember this word for word, I would love it.
It's
Uh,
just yeah. I mean, sorry, sorry. I think his philosophical zombie is about how someone that
mhm.
seems like a normal human but does not have conscious experience or sense experience or what we
Right.
call qualia. So it's
Mhm.
just I think they have all the physical states, but they do not have the mental
Right,
states. I
exactly,
think that
exactly.
that is it.
You've hit the nail on the spot. They act like us, but they are not conscious, right? Now, have you heard of Kripke? Saul Kripke's logic, model logic. I will explain it if you haven't. So,
Okay, please
according to
explain.
him, yeah, according to him, there's a difference of epistemic possibility and metaphysical possibility. Now,
Okay.
if I say that Dorothy exists on Earth, that is a metaphysical possibility because it is real, by the way, because it is real. Now,
It is.
but according to him, through model logic, now if you study model logic, I think we have to make another whole video on model logic, is that what is true in this world may just be epistemically impossible in some other world. All right. There's this idea that um, there's this idea that if I say Dorothy exists on Earth, but I can also say Dorothy exists on Mars, and there is no logical barrier that stops it from happening because there's this possibility and there's reality. What is real is here, but there's also a possibility that I can say you exist on Mars and I'm equally correct. Now, regarding that, we can also attach it or apply it to consciousness. All right, so as I was saying, Kripke's idea of this epistemic versus metaphysical divide, right? So
Mm-hmm.
metaphysically, what is true is that Dorothy exists on Earth, but
Yes.
there is no logical barrier, according to Kripke, that stops me from imagining epistemically. Now, what is epistemic? It's basically your mind, your knowledge. You can imagine, right? That Dorothy exists on Mars. There's no
Yes.
logic that stops me from imagining it. So if we apply it to consciousness, then technically philosophical zombies is a possibility in this world metaphysically, according to Chalmers. Yeah, that there can be
Yeah.
a thing which displays the same characteristics as humans, but they are not conscious at all. But using Kripke's logic of this epistemic possibility, as in Dorothy can exist on Mars, I can also say that there can exist an inverted philosophical zombie. What is that? That means that one being can exist that shows no same physical consciousness markers such as us, but still be conscious. It's essentially the
Right.
opposite and the opposite of what philosophical zombie is, right? So it can be
Right.
one or the other. So in this, do you remember that logical formula, the law of identity? P and not P is always equal to false because a thing cannot be and not be at the same time. That is
Same
false.
time.
But then here's the problem I think we run into when it comes to consciousness. If P is equal to consciousness, now we look at this AI, right? And we say
Right.
and if we come from this really naive assumption that a thing can either be conscious or not conscious, we run into this problem. We think that P dot not P is equal to false always. That
Mm.
or the law of excluded middle. P or no, P wedge not P, right? That a thing has to be conscious or not conscious. If we come from this naive assumption, then we run into this problem because we do not understand consciousness at all. So
Right. Right.
we cannot say P or not P because we do not understand what P is. We do not understand what consciousness is. So how can we say something is conscious and something is not conscious? Because as we already saw, that no logic prevents us from thinking up an inverted zombie, an inverted philosophical zombie. But then again, there can also be a possibility of a physical zombie, or sorry, a metaphysically possible zombie. Sorry. So it can be both this and that, all of these different ideas and also further ideas from this physicalist perspective like JCC Smart's identity theory, which simply says that your whole physical process is consciousness. Consciousness is not separate from physical processes. So pain, pain is not separate from the firing of C fibers, as he calls it. So do you
Okay.
understand this? That if in your nervous system there is a firing of
Mm-hmm.
C fiber neurons, that exactly is pain. We simply have thought up that our subjective experience is so different from this physical process. That is the identity theory. As in, what he's trying to say is that consciousness does not exist as something different from the physical process. That is the identity theory. Now, what exactly is a functionalist theory, right? Functionalist theory
Right. Yes.
by
Please tell us more about that. Yeah.
yeah. So functionalist theory, functionalism by Putnam simply says that your consciousness is simply a mental state. Now, which we confuse as something so mystical and different than what your body naturally feels. As in, uh, um, you are hungry, and then your
Mm-hmm.
body wants food. And then once you eat that food, your hunger is satiated. You're satisfied. But
Right, yes.
we somehow make a distinction very erroneously, according to Putnam, that your hunger is very different from what your body naturally feels. So it's one and the same thing, but you consider it different. So that is functionalism, that your body has these different set states: hunger, pain, love, sorrow. Now, whatever your body feels, it simply sets itself to that state like this. But we consider those feelings as something so different from what our body naturally inclines towards. So even in this, he simply states that consciousness is not some mystical phenomena, it simply is what your body feels. That is it.
Right, right.
Right. So I have this to share. This diagram. You tell me if you can see it. Hold on.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yes, yes, I can
Okay.
see it now.
So here is this table for functionalism. So if you look down at the bottom, it says number one,
Mm-hmm.
the first step is input, food deprivation.
Yes,
Your body feels this, right? And then
right, right.
in the second phase, it's your mental state of hunger that forms, right? And then the third
Right, right.
phase, your third phase is your observable behavioral eating, or your observable behavior, which is eating, which satiates your
Mm-hmm.
hunger. In this second phase, that is where you erroneously come
Mm-hmm.
up with this idea that this is your mental state of consciousness, which is hunger. However,
Right.
according to functionalism, this is simply an imagination, something that is very, it's not true, essentially. You think
So
it
it's
up.
just what we imagine. We
It's just what you
just think
imagine.
it.
Right. And this is what even J.J.C. Smart talked about in his identity theory, that this whole idea of consciousness is a nomological dangler. What is a nomological
Oh,
dangler? It simply means that it's a residue from Cartesian dualism, where
mm-hmm.
because Descartes thought that mind and body are two separate things, right? Now,
Right, right.
right. So because of that, in this present day, we think of consciousness as so different from your physicality. So that is why in these three steps, in the second step, we imagine that there's some sort of consciousness, some mystical phenomena that exists beyond the physical processes. So this is simply a residue from Cartesian dualism. That is what J.J.C. Smart says. In fact, I think that is what most physicalists talk about. So according to them, consciousness is not so different, or it's not different at all from your physical processes.
Right.
I hope this makes sense, right? So
It does.
yeah, yeah. So the point here I'm trying to make is that there are so many different theories for consciousness. Yeah. So if there are so many different theories for consciousness, what does it mean? I'll tell you what it means is that we do not understand consciousness at all. If we understood, why would we have so many theories about it, right? Because
Right.
yeah, if we understand cell theory or cells, there's only one
Mm.
theory for it, because cells can be studied, cells can be thought up, cells are something that we know a lot about. But consciousness, by virtue of it being so mysterious, we do not know what it is, and therefore there are so many theories behind it. So we do not understand consciousness at all. But what this entails, it's something very interesting. Now, you go ahead with your ideas that you wanted to talk about. I'm going to
Right.
start sharing here.
Before I go ahead with my idea, like you said, we do not understand what consciousness is at all. And there are a few times when I talk about consciousness. I talk about consciousness every time because I do not understand it. And the more I research on consciousness, the more I do not know what consciousness is. And there are times when people ask me why is consciousness so fascinating? I mean, what exactly makes consciousness so fascinating? Because if we think about it, we mostly assume that to be consciousness means the state of being awake or the state of being aware, but that's not it at all.
Mm.
Consciousness isn't what we think. Consciousness is an illusion, and I feel like we can consciousness can alter reality because there was this one research in 1970, not research,
Mm.
experiment. So
Mm.
in 1974, okay, the
Mm.
largest human consciousness experiment was
Oh,
conducted.
okay.
The largest human consciousness experiment ever in
Yeah.
1974. There, 7,000 people, they meditated, okay, they meditated
Mm.
together, they focused on peace for 3 weeks, and the result is I'm not sure, but the result is fascinating because what the crime, the violence, the war, it globally dropped by 16%,
Oh, wow.
which is amazing. And we could be, of course, skeptical about this, but
Hmm.
it was a real measured experiment which was led by physicists and meditation experts. Their goal was to test if consciousness itself could alter reality.
Hmm.
And following this, again in 1988,
Yeah.
people around 4,000 people gathered in Washington D.C. And the
Hmm.
science behind was that meditation increased alpha and the theta brain waves. So
Mm.
when thousands sink in this state, it creates a measurable coherent field. So that field doesn't just stay inside you, it ripples outward. It's outward. So they said that your heart's electromagnetic field, it
Hmm.
is 5,000 times stronger than your brain, and it
Oh,
extends about 8 to 12 feet beyond your body. So
oh,
your heart's electromagnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than your brain. And
see.
Dr. John Hegelin, I guess, he's a quantum physicist. He said that we are not isolated islands of consciousness. We
Mm.
are connected. It's like we are drops in the same ocean. So consciousness doesn't stop at your skull. It broadcasts. And this is super fascinating when I started learning about this. So I'm like, wow, consciousness could actually alter reality. Can you
Okay.
imagine it could alter reality? Like, I could never think of
I
it that way.
I am imagining what it implications will be for people who are schizophrenics, who have schizophrenia, for example, right?
Right, that's a very good one. That's a very good one.
Yeah, so what kind of reality do they have? Because they probably see the world differently. I, I, I have known schizophrenic people. They see the world differently from people like people like us, and then they see some they hallucinate people. They have their own reality. So then, what exactly is consciousness? We come back to the same question. Yeah.
Exactly. And I feel like, yeah, we can just call it a controlled hallucination again. For them, they see a different reality.
Hmm.
So what's real for them might not be the reality for us. But we cannot
Yeah.
say that, okay, that's not, even if it's your reality, that's not my reality. So it cannot be true. We cannot
Yeah.
simply dismiss it that way. So
Hmm.
again, like you said, we come back to what consciousness is.
So, what gives us the right to say that what we feel is the truth? What if what they feel is the truth? What if that is
Ex-
what the real thing is, right? Because
Exactly.
even in films like Matrix, when you're essentially this whole world, what you're experiencing is simply a simulation. What if when we die, we wake up in a different world and this was all, you know those VR goggles? What if we are
Yeah. Oh,
fully,
yeah.
right? So what if all of this is simply simulation, regard? And what if all of this is not real? Or what if people who are schizophrenics, maybe they see their reality for how it is? We never know. We can never know. Or maybe we can in
Yeah.
the future. I do not know. Yeah.
I have no idea at all to think
But
of it.
But don't you think that's what makes consciousness so interesting, a phenomenon? Because We do not know. We do not know about it. So
And we will never know.
I have this idea that to even think about whether machines are conscious or not is simply just it's simply redundant because maybe we should focus on
Hmm.
other things because we ourselves don't know what consciousness is. So how can we
Yes.
talk about whether this or that machine is conscious? That's just the idea.
I, I feel like we keep on talking about machine consciousness, but then one thing I wanted to, I mean, in a different video, of course,
Mm-hmm.
is to discuss about seeking companionship from machines.
Oh, okay.
It's a consciousness is a different topic altogether in a way that okay, AI could be conscious or could not be conscious is very different from companionship, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talk about this consciousness and all, but then to me, I feel like machines or AI, they are just a reflection of our own consciousness, our
Exactly.
emotional vulnerabilities, and
Yeah.
the unsettling possibility that in seeking companionship from machines,
Mm.
we may be revealing the deepest, darkest truths about ourselves.
That is
That's
very interesting.
something I want to explore. Yes.
Mm. I always have had this idea that AI or machines are simply a mirror of us because who builds machines? It's us, right? And
Exactly.
yeah, so they are simply mirrors. That's what they are.
They
And
are
it's very
mirrors.
interesting.
And
I think I
we
think in
should
the
talk
yeah,
about companionship.
yeah, we will definitely in our future videos. I think we can have an entire video dedicated to this topic because this is very interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because some of us are even in love with ChatGPT. Can you imagine that?
Yes. Have you seen this movie Her by Joaquin Phoenix? Or it stars Joaquin Phoenix. I don't have you Her
Uh,
Her.
Har, Oh yes, 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 yes.
You have
I
seen
think
it.
yes, we watched this during our philosophy of film class
I
in
see.
during our degree college days. Yes, but
Mm.
continue what you're to say.
No, no, that's a representation of what you were saying that people fall in love with AI. It's also a very metaphysical idea of falling in love with who
Right,
you want or what you consider to be the ideal person, which
right.
right. So, but then the ideal person is something that you yourself create because you want the answers that you want. And it's not what the
Yeah.
chat GPT or what the AI is giving on its own. It's what you want to hear. So
Yes, exactly.
it's like a mirror. Yeah.
So I see AI could be divided into three parts, I should say.
Hmm.
Artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence,
Okay.
artificial super intelligence. So in AI, we have weak or narrow AI, right? So
Mm-mm.
those comes, so say ChatGPT.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer in
Right.
the long form of it. So if we could fall in love with the pre-trained transformer, imagine how we will love the ASI or artificial super intelligence. Because
Mm.
to me, according to me, I feel like we will not even differentiate whether it's ASI or a human.
Mm.
So if we cannot differentiate it, then it means that there's no difference at all.
Right. We
Don't you
cannot,
think?
yeah, we cannot differentiate is a very interesting concept. I would suggest, I don't know if you've read about, I think the thinker's name was Baudrillard, Simulation and
Mm.
Simulacra, where
Okay. I've not read it.
yeah, I will definitely send it to you. Although we will not talk
Mhm.
about this here because this is not very, I mean, I guess it is related, but I think we will have a separate topic for that as well.
Yes,
Essentially,
yes.
talks about how things become um, more like a simulation as time goes on. I think
Mm-hmm.
I will send it to you as well. So,
Okay, yes, please do that.
yeah. So, do you want to talk about finally about what the implications of consciousness in the future could be? Will we ever come to know what consciousness is, or how it might affect AI in the future?
Right. I feel like that's such a very beautiful and dangerous questions altogether, because
Right.
I feel like this is the kind of philosophy that keeps open precisely because closing it might feel what it means to be conscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to answer honestly, not as someone who is an expert of consciousness, of course, but as someone who tackles with both philosophy and AI, I'd
Mm-hmm.
say that we will get closer to describing consciousness, but then never define it completely. Because defining it means stepping outside of it. And that's the
Yeah.
one thing consciousness cannot do. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot look at yourself in the mirror from outside when you are the reflection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Makes
you
sense.
cannot
Yeah.
step outside it. And that's just the one thing that consciousness cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like science will likely map every neural correlate or decode dreams, simulate awareness in machines and all those. But
Mm-hmm.
those will be like tracing the shadow of consciousness, not touching it, not touching consciousness. So
Okay.
at its phenomenological core,
Yeah.
what it feels like to be, that might remain forever first person point of view. We cannot translate it to the third person world of description.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
that it doesn't mean that it's futile. It doesn't mean that the search for it is futile, but then each attempt, like from Descartes' thinking thing to Wittgenstein's silence, AI neural nets to panpsychism's
Mm-hmm.
metaphysics,
Mm-hmm.
it teaches us not what consciousness is, but it teaches us what consciousness isn't.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
perhaps that's the only real progress we can make by circling. We're going in circle
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we will refine the mystery, but we won't destroy it. We won't come to know it. So maybe the future of consciousness is not definite. It's not, it's not definable, but then it could indeed be deepening. And we will do so in a more nuanced language for the experience of being. So our philosophy
Mm,
textbook will be thicker. That's the only thing I can be definitive about
that is true.
and
That's a very,
certain.
yeah, very good
Yes.
idea. I mean, yeah.
But I would like to add that I feel like the task of thought again, it is both intimate and collective. And now um, it's the work of each of us to question everything. It doesn't
Mm,
have to be every smallest bit of it, but then we have to question what it means to be conscious, what it means to be human, right?
yeah, yeah.
So we have to keep on asking questions. And in this ongoing task of thought, we we both do not stand as master of consciousness, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we are fellow travelers in this vast horizon.
Mm,
And as Marcel Proust once said, that
mm.
the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscape, but in having new eyes.
Oh,
So
wow.
we
Yeah.
should always dare to see with new eyes.
That's very poetic, which you have brought very aptly in this conversation because
Mhm.
um, like I said to you before all of this, that poetry and philosophy are quite interconnected, which is something that we can also explore in our future videos. But yeah,
Right.
I think inevitably, I don't know if we'll ever know what consciousness is, but understanding it is understanding the human condition. I think
Yes.
I think that's an interesting topic for generations to keep studying on, I think. Yes.
Hence, our textbook will become thicker and
Hence
there
our
will be
textbooks
more
will come.
articles to be read.
Yeah, yeah, so
One last thing, one
mm,
last thing. Do you think it's very comical to even talk about consciousness while using consciousness to do it? Because while we were talking, I have this one theory. It feels
mm.
like now we are talking about consciousness, using consciousness to do it. It's like a fish trying to describe water. What is water?
Yeah, exactly. Because a fish always has known only water. It doesn't, it cannot conceptualize and comprehend that
Right.
you can breathe without what is surrounding you, right? So, yeah, it is quite ironic. But then that's, I think, uh, what it means to be human, that everything that we do is very
Yes.
ironic. because we are here and we're talking about what it means to be here, but we'll never know what it means to be here. It's an infinite
Yeah,
regrets of sorts. So yeah, that's consciousness, which is the human condition. But
consciousness
yeah,
for now.
yeah, this has been a very interesting talk. I think we can wrap it up here for now. It is essentially an introduction
Yes, yes.
to the channel. We will continue to do more talks. We will invite more speakers and research scholars. And I think we will also have a lecture series soon. And to all the
Mm-hmm.
audience, again, welcome to the channel. This is the Lyceum-Agora. I am Tridib. This is my co-host. Go
Dorothy.
on, Dorothy. Yes. So yeah.
Yes.
So once again, thank you to everybody
Mhm.
who watches this. Thank you to Dorothy yourself for
Yeah, thank
speaking.
you to the
So
yes,
yeah,
thank you everyone.
yes.
Yeah, thank you
Right.
everyone. Please take care of
Bye.
your thoughts. Bye bye.
Bye. See you again soon.
See you.